Hello and welcome back to A Sprinkle of Disney. We're sharing episode 9 with you today. 9, I actually can't believe we're on episode 9.
We say this every single week.
It's unbelievable. We're literally...
It is a good milestone though.
It is, isn't it? I think it just means that, like, you know, this is a commitment now. We can't really leave it anymore. So
No, I mean, I wonder at what point we're going to stop being shocked that we've made another one. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's true.
We keep being like, oh, another one.
We just love to throw our milestones in, don't we?
We do.
So maybe it will never stop. Maybe it'll always be a novelty to us, but
I hope
yes.
so.
Well, anyway, we're only one episode away from our 10th episode milestone, so that's very special. We're very proud of that. And we're only 10 listens away from 400 listens to our podcast, which is
crazy.
Like, if you'd have told me that was going to happen when we started this thing, I would have been like, no one's going to listen to
My
us.
mum keeps going, is that just
cares.
you listening over and over? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, legit. Like, so yeah, we're very proud of that. So thank you all very much for listening and sticking with us if you're back, or welcome if you're new here. I hope you enjoy today's episode, because today is a very special episode, and Katie will tell you why that is.
I will. Before I do that, I need to make an apology to Rosie once again this week. If you listened to episode 8 when it was released, you may have noticed that Rosie just wasn't in the last 5 minutes. I forgot to bring the volume back up on Rosie. I'm not trying to oust her. I'm not trying to take over the podcast. So I'm sorry. So Rosie isn't leaving the podcast. All is well.
No, still here.
Is that the second public apology I've had to make to you in the last 2 episodes? It's not really. Can you do something wrong, please? So you have to apologise to me. So today is our very first Marvel episode, and we've been mentioning this for quite a while, and we are absolutely thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. You'll have heard us talk about her a lot, probably in every single episode, particularly if you listen to episode 7, which is Hocus Pocus. Our best friend Danielle is joining A Sprinkle of Disney today, as she is our resident Marvel expert in the group. So we all kind of have like our niches and stuff. Like Rosie tends to be our Star Wars expert. I tend to be like the general Disney like on everything, as opposed to specific things. And then Danielle comes in with the Marvel facts. So she'll be helping us today to introduce you to the MCU, or it's called the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we know that like not everyone's going to be a Marvel fan. I am only a very recent new Marvel fan, but like Danielle is kind of like Marvel hardcore, and then Rosie's somewhere in the middle. So whether you're a Marvel maniac or a Marvel virgin, the episode's going to have something for you. So stick with us. Even if you think you hate superheroes, stick with us. So first, let's say hi to Dan. So hello, Danielle, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Danielle. I'm 23.
I like how you had to check.
I don't know why. I do apologise. And I currently work in a legal law firm as a paralegal. That's very boring. Let's move away from that. So I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you both very much for having me. I don't actually know what else to say.
Enough, to be fair. Maybe you're
having a bit of a moment.
To be fair, tell our lovely listeners how we met. Yes. How do you know us?
Oh, right. Okay. I didn't think about that one. Right. So I met Katie on my first day in university.
It was
in
so
Lancaster.
long ago. We've been friends for like so long.
So long ago. We were actually housemates. It was quite funny because we were both from the same area, the Wirral. And we were both like, "Oh, you're from the Wirral." If you're from the Wirral, you realise it's a novelty to find somebody else that knows where the Wirral is. And then I met Rosie the year later in Disney Society when I first joined the Disney Society, and we've been best friends since.
So basically, I am the reason that we're all friends.
Well, it's true.
You have to be like the person.
You had to do that.
It's true. Sorry, it's true. Literally, because Rosie came to live with us in like our 3rd year, and I was like, come to the house, but then I had to leave, so I was like, oh, sorry, here's Danielle, my housemate. She'll show you around.
I think I knew Rosie before that.
Yeah, you'd met me
briefly,
but we hadn't had like a proper conversation.
Not really well enough for me to have like left you alone in the house together. Like
no. But the thing was, my second house was so bad. I was like, I'm so happy to be in a different house.
That is true.
Yeah.
And it's been the 3 of us ever since.
Yeah.
Which is cute.
Yeah.
So that also, go on.
I would like to object to the description of me being that I only like Marvel. Actually, I
didn't say you only like Marvel.
No, you're just the expert.
That's kind of what That's kind of what it felt like, though.
Right, well, thank you everyone for listening. That's the end of our episode. But no, it's just because we all have like our niches where like we really like come alive. So like when we do our quizzes, like we do like weekly quizzes as a friendship group, which is really cute.
It is.
Like Dan did a Marvel one that I failed spectacularly at.
To be fair to you, I was probably a bit mean doing that because I was having a moment of what am I going to do as a quiz topic.
Bearing in mind, I'd seen like a third of the films. She still did it, but it's fine. I'm not bitter.
So, not at all, obviously. Katie likes to win if you haven't already guessed.
That's such a lie. I don't care. It's not my fault that I win. Like, do better, and then I won't have to win.
We'll just have to do the quiz again now that you've actually seen all the Marvel films.
Oh, I think I'd still lose, to be fair.
We'll see.
But at least I wouldn't have, like, a decent excuse to lose.
Exactly.
I'd lose
you
properly.
Can't blame it on not seeing.
So we are all massive Disney fans, and I think we all... You've heard my favourite Disney film. You know Rosie's favourite Disney film. So, Danielle, what's your favourite Disney film?
Oh, that's a difficult one. And I hate being put on the spot for this question. This is honestly the worst.
It is hard. It is.
Every Disney fan knows the pain.
Just to pick one is
so
asking
many
too much.
Good ones. Yeah, I think mine's a split between Beauty and the Beast and Lilo and Stitch. I know they're very like...
I'd have bet my house on the fact that was going to be your answer.
But the other one I like closely running up behind is Tangled. I absolutely love Tangled at the minute. I don't know what it is. I just love it. I love the music. I love everything about it.
Interesting. We have overlapping favourites as a trio.
We do. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, because I think Beauty and the Beast and Lilo and Stitch are sort of Rosie's favourites as well. So we do all tend to overlap, which is quite cool. So anyway, enough about us. No one really cares.
It's not what you're here for.
Yeah, let's just move on. That's what we're here for.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Let's get started. So that brings us to our first Disney fun fact of the day. So this is I was going to say Star Wars. It's not. It's a Spider-Man fun fact. In the early 1990s, Michael Jackson tried to buy Marvel Comics just so that he could play Spider-Man in his own produced movie. I applaud that, to be fair.
Yeah.
That's the level of commitment.
That is
the level of commitment.
It is. It's kind of goals, actually.
I'm really sad that he never did it, actually. That would have been a really interesting.
It would have been entertaining.
It would have been interesting. But
I imagine it probably would have bombed.
Yeah, I wonder how good it would have been. Like it would have been a feature.
Yeah, it would have been a gimmicky film, I think. Yeah, and that's probably it.
One that you'd look back on and laugh about, which I feel really bad saying because I like Michael Jackson.
I don't see it. Apologies.
No.
Yes. Well, so that brings us to our first segment. So even though it's now owned by Disney, so it's now a Disney franchise, our Marvel knowledge varies between each of us. As we've mentioned, we're all quite different levels, I think, of how much we love Marvel, how much we know about Marvel, which was very clear when we did the quiz. And I don't just mean Katie, I mean I failed on a lot of things, including what SHIELD stands for, and to this day I still don't know what that stands for.
How do you still not know? I will bring that up.
Okay,
no,
you show that off.
It out.
Yeah, we don't want to be put to shame again. Thank you.
Not right.
No, we'll do that later. So, Danielle, tell us how you got into Marvel and how much you know.
Okay, so do you know what? I can't actually remember when I got into Marvel. Like, it sounds silly, but I think it was like my brother's always been like a big fan of Marvel and Star Wars, and he loves all those kind of like franchises. And he claims he reads the comics. I've never seen him read the comics. So we'll leave that with him. He'll probably, if he ever listens to this, he'll probably be like cursing me, but whatever. We'll leave that with him. But the first time I remember actually watching it and engaging with it was when I watched the Avengers, the original Avengers, which was like 2012, I think it came out. But I think I watched it a couple of years later, and it was when it was on TV, and I just remember being like hooked by it basically. And I get like that with movies sometimes. I just hooked by one movie and I'll keep watching it, and then I kind of just got a bit intrigued into the rest of it, and that's kind of how it happened. It wasn't what drew me in was I don't know. I can't pinpoint it exactly. Well, that's a lie. I can. It was Steve Rogers. It was Captain America.
Well, that's fair enough,
Captain
isn't it?
That's very fair. That's probably how most girls and women ended up liking superheroes.
Yes, no, that is how I ended up liking superheroes, was Captain America, and I think it just kind of evolved from there. And now it's like my brother always used to say to me, he was like, "You only watch it because of the men," and I'd be like, "Yes, that's probably true." But now it isn't anymore. I actually genuinely enjoy it. Like I genuinely enjoy the plots and watching it and like seeing where it's going to go next.
Yes.
But originally it was because of the men.
I think it's probably because it's got so many like famous actors in it and actresses in it that I imagine lots of people are probably drawn to it initially because of the actors. So because you
Robert Downey Jr. was like a big
he was a big thing. Like for them to get him was huge.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, even like for me, I'm a massive Chris Hemsworth fan, as we'll talk about later. But I do love, so like for the fact that Chris Hemsworth was in it for me was like a big draw to the films and stuff like that. So I think probably lots of people who maybe wouldn't normally see themselves as a superhero film person got drawn in by their favorite actors.
Yeah, that was basically me. Is I never ever considered myself a superhero fan, like ever. I was always like mainstream Disney fan. Never really engaged in, like, my brother absolutely, again, as I said, he absolutely loves Star Wars and Marvel, and I never really engaged with it until he kind of like made me watch it on TV, and that was it then. It's kind of, that was what started it, was my brother forcing me to watch TV with him.
Imagine what you've been missing out on if you didn't like.
I know.
That is true.
I know, that is very true. It's very, very true. Okay, so Rosie, how did you get into watching Marvel?
So mine's quite similar to yours, actually. So my brother watched Avengers so many times. I remember going into his room and he'd be watching it, and it would always be the fighting scene that I'd walk in on. So I'd be quite intrigued, and I'd be like, "Oh, this looks quite good," and then I'd like sit on his bed with him for a bit and watch some of it, and then I'd just walk out because it didn't pique my interest enough at that time. I feel like that was probably the year it came out, or it like just came out on DVD or something. He was watching it back to back, but that was like my first introduction to Marvel. Kind of left it for a couple of years. And then I got into a relationship with my boyfriend, Josh, and we did like movie nights together early on in our relationship. And he was like, "You need to watch some Marvel films. We're going to watch Iron Man." And I was like, I don't want to watch Iron Man. We're going to watch a Disney film instead. I want to watch a Disney film. And he was like, "No, you watch these Marvel films because they are amazing. You won't regret it and you'll be addicted to them." And I was like, "Okay, sure." So then we watched Iron Man and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." And then that same night we watched another like 3-4 Marvel films. So he's basically the reason I love Marvel. And we always go and see the Marvel films together when they come out in the cinema. It's like a tradition of ours.
Oh yes, we know that.
Yeah, we know.
Well, sorry, apologies. And that's to the point where when we were traveling, when we went interrailing in our gap year, we even saw Age of Ultron in Munich in a German cinema.
That's cool.
Which was a really cool experience because they actually clapped at the end. It was really weird. Like we were sat there, the credits were coming up, and they just all stood up and clapped, and we were like, "Oh, wow. We don't do this."
Was it in German?
No, it wasn't. It was an English showing. Yes.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Yeah,
did you sit there reading the subtitles?
We were going to commit to that if that was the only option, but no, there was thankfully an English show.
I think it would have been funny to have listened to all of the voiceovers, all the international actors.
Yeah,
to reach that would have been quite funny.
Yeah, no, it would have been funny. And then, in terms of what I know, I mean, I've seen all of the films, and I love them all. I don't think there's actually a single one. I know people don't love Doctor Strange that much, but I was gonna say I actually do like it quite a lot. Like I don't love it as much as the others, but I appreciate every Marvel film and pretty much all the Marvel characters. So, but I'm a kind of like dip in and out kind of person. But I guess I'm kind of like a big fan in the sense that I'll always have to go and see the film like as soon as it's come out. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into Marvel. So Katie,
I'm the Marvel newbie.
You
really,
are.
I think my Marvel relationship has been really strange. So it started in my first year of uni. So will that have been 2015?
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah,
that's how old we are now, guys.
And so actually technically it would have been 2016 because it was later in my first year. And my friend Alex, who lived in the house opposite us, we met through theatre stuff, and he was telling me about it. Was just before Civil War came out in the cinema, and he was like, you need to come and see it. And I was like, oh no. And he was like, no, we'll go and watch it. And I was like, okay. I was like, but I haven't watched any of them beforehand. I think that's the thing with Marvel, it can be quite intimidating. You think you have to have watched every single film beforehand to understand it. And I learned it helps, but you don't have to do that to enjoy the film. So I think he gave me like a watch list. So I had to watch the first 2 Captain Americas and the first Avengers.
Yeah, that's a pretty good watch list. Actually,
to be prepared for Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
I still missed a lot of what was going on, like the bigger plot line, but I really enjoyed the film. Although I must say, Daniel's going to hate me for this, but I remember watching, I really enjoyed, I think it was I think the first time I watched the Captain America films, number 1 and 2, I was really bored. But I think it was because I didn't really get the bigger picture. I was like, what is happening? But it's quite intimidating going into the films. Like, and I was watching them under pressure as well. So I was like, I have to like binge these films. And they're quite long.
There's so many overarching stories as well.
I think especially with the earlier films, they were quite slow to get going in some of them as well. So if you're like forcing yourself to watch it, you're not going to enjoy it because it's so slow to get going.
Because when I rewatched them, which I'll talk about in a sec, but when I rewatched them, I absolutely loved them. I didn't even realise that the Nazis were in the first one. I think because I just like
you just didn't pay attention to it.
You just weren't into it the first time.
No, so
not when you've got Captain America on the screen, but
well, he was great, but it was just slow. I was like, what's happening? So I went to cinema and saw Civil War was the first Marvel film that I saw in the cinema, and I was like, this is well good. And like the atmosphere was great, and it was something in the cinema that I hadn't really had in a while. I don't think I'd had it since like Harry Potter. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And then from there, I kind of just like dipped in and out. I didn't really watch any more at home. I was kind of like a very casual Marvel fan. If like friends were going to watch the films, then I'd go. And I kind of followed along like mostly after that. So I think after that, I saw most of them in the cinema after that, I think. Like I saw Black Panther in the cinema. I saw Infinity War and Endgame in the cinema. Did I see any others?
Did you see Spider-Man or not?
Yeah, no. the new Spider-Mans. No. Did you see Guardians of the Galaxy?
No.
Oh, you watched them all like not at the cinema?
I've watched them now.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my. So I feel like I got on board at the best time.
Yeah, you did.
Because that was when
just in time.
Yeah. Because that was when things really started to like hit off in terms of like them all joining together. So that was really cool. But it was really difficult because when I mentioned in episode 5, our Disney parks, like me working in Florida, they put me in the Marvel shop, and at that point I had literally seen like 3 Marvel films. So that was a real test.
That was a test.
And a real trial. So I learned lots of bitty things in there. So I watched Infinity War and Endgame in the cinema, and then after Danielle's horrific Marvel quiz, I was like, right, I wanted to watch the films like in order for a really long time. So I had a few weeks off work, so I was like, right, I'm doing it. So every night I watched a different Marvel film. I went right from the beginning. I went right from Iron Man. To be fair, I still haven't seen the very last Spider-Man, and I still need to watch that one actually.
It's a good one.
But I've watched all of them now. So I think I'm like a testament as someone who like didn't really think I really like action films, but I didn't think I'd like superhero films. I was wrong. I really like superhero films because I think they're a lot more complex and different and deep, and they're funny as well. They have a bit of everything in them.
They're not just trashy films with gimmicks.
And
there's
I think
a lot of meaning.
I think that's half the thing that puts people off sometimes. Like it put me off originally. I will hold my hands up and say is that I always thought, oh, a superhero film, like really? Like it's gonna be full of like I don't know what I expected, but like as you said, gimmicks,
cheap.
But cheap.
I think I expected it to be like cheap and tacky.
But they're really not.
They are such high budget films. That like the graphics are amazing, like so the writing is amazing. It's all for most of them.
Honestly, the cast
is insane.
I was so shocked at how good the cast was the whole way. So like when I rewatched and I had like Iron Man, obviously you got Robert Downey Jr., but then you have Gwyneth Paltrow in it, Jon Favreau in it, and then when you move into something like Thor, and you've suddenly got Natalie Portman's in it, and it's just like it. And in Iron Man, when you had
Idris Elba
was in them, Dominic Cooper was in the first Iron Man.
Very, very good cast.
Very, very, very good cast.
And you got Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's definitely a draw in. So if you are a bit like me and had never kind of seen any Marvel films, you're always more mainstream Disney.
Yeah.
Hopefully will kind of inspire you to go and try a Marvel film after today.
Yes.
Because I definitely was then hooked on them, definitely. And I think it's interesting because you can watch the films in isolation. So like Black Panther works completely on its own as a film.
It does, yeah.
But when you've watched it in like the whole timeline, it has different elements and different additions to it, which is really cool.
The same can be said about the Guardians of the Galaxy as well, because they don't really come into the timeline until Infinity War.
That's true.
Probably watch those movies on their own.
And
not really need to see anything prior to it.
It's interesting how we all needed like a push to watch Marvel though. Like none of us went.
I think it's a girl thing as well.
Yeah.
I think superheroes have always, let's be honest, superheroes have always been targeted to boys.
Oh yeah,
they are.
The representation in there is mainly male. We haven't really got that in here, but we'll talk about it now. So the idea that like most of the superheroes are men. That most of the geniuses are men.
Mm-hmm.
When the women are in there, and then, even from Marvel, the costumes aren't great.
Yeah, and the women are always like the supporting role. Like they're not like a main character. They're like, like Gwyneth Paltrow, she's kind of like a supporting character.
She's so wasted. I love her, but she's so wasted in those films. I wanted more Gwyneth.
Because she's so great.
Those films.
She is great.
So so I think I should say like Danielle's probably like the most knowledgeable. Like even like now, I've seen them all and I could tell you bits about them. But if you were to ask me a question about like a specific film, I'd probably struggle about like names and stuff like that. Even for my favorite films, I'd probably still struggle. Then Rosie somewhere in the middle, and then I'm like just enjoying the ride. I'm just enjoying the Marvel ride.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Yeah, so Dan, as our guest, I would like to invite you to do our Disney Fun Fact number 2.
Oh, interesting. So Disney Fun Fact number 2 is, so to the surprise of many, the public knew about Tom Holland, this is because we're talking about Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Holland's casting as Spider-Man before he did. So he did an interview on The Ellen Show and said that he'd been auditioning for a role for nearly 5 months. And during his last audition, he was told they'd reveal the cast details the next day, but he ended up waiting 6 weeks until it came online, all over the place for him to even find out he had been cast. Which for me, I think would be really scary.
That's terrifying.
No.
Yeah.
I also what if you changed your mind?
Yeah,
you're stuck.
Yeah, but I also think it's like waiting for a job. Like you sit there in limbo, and it's like, do I accept something else? Do I wait?
Yeah, that's so
what
true.
What do you do? So I feel for Tom Holland in that situation,
especially what do you then do? You kind of then call like Disney and be like, so have I got the job?
Yeah, is this true? Are the rumors about me true?
I also think that's kind of like poor on Disney's side. Like, and I'd never ever say that, but I'm like, you could have at least told the poor lad. Like,
well, I mean, knowing Tom Holland as well. To be fair,
true.
He's probably
to be fair, he probably
7 missed calls.
And like,
or an email.
If anybody follows him on Instagram, they will see that he's known to be the person that spills the beans. So they're probably worried.
So it's quite ironic.
Yeah. So it is quite ironic, actually. You're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that brings us to segment number 2. So we're going to talk briefly around what is the Marvel MCU. So you'll probably hear us mention like the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. You'll probably see it over Facebook, Instagram, like websites. And you might be that person who's like, what on earth is the MCU? Because that was me. I was like, what does that even stand for? So Danielle's going to explain what we mean by that, where it comes from, how it works, and kind of what you need to know to start your Marvel journey.
Okay, so Marvel MCU basically stands for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's the accumulation of all the films that they've got at the moment and their future ones that they've got in the pipeline. So at the moment they've got 23 films out, but obviously about to create across phases 1, 2 and 3. Rosie will explain them a little bit more later. And now they're on phase 4, which I think has got about 6 in the pipelines waiting for. Not 100% if that's the right number, so I do apologise if it's not. So basically, when we talk about the MCU and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's basically the comic book adaptations into film, and they're all done with Stan Lee, who is the comic book creator, and he would always be there alongside. And like basically checking the films and being like, yeah, I'm happy with that. And he always made little cameos in them, and he was always quite funny when he made his little cameos in them.
They were great.
I love how involved he was.
He was
really cool.
so involved, yeah. So he was obviously, he came from like creating it all the way up to producing it all. So that's what we mean kind of by the Marvel MCU. So Marvel was acquired by Disney in 2009 for $4 billion. That's a lot of money.
What
I
a
wish
deal.
I had that much money. Yeah, it was probably, to be fair, it is a deal. Like, especially think about
it's a lot of money to us.
Yeah.
But in like the film world,
it's all not
what they've earned from it since.
Oh my
God.
That's what I was going to say, is that you've got Endgame and Infinity War up there, the biggest, the highest grossing films of like ever. And they've surpassed Avatar, haven't they?
Yeah, it's the highest earning franchise in history now. So
that is probably the biggest steal they've ever made. Is that acquisition?
Deal.
You could probably read more about that in Bob Iger's book, The Ride of a Lifetime, which I actually need to read because I've never read it.
It's very good.
I did tell you to read it about a year ago. I'm still here, but it's fine.
It's okay. We all have different paces with these things.
Rosie, because I think I lent it to Rosie. Rosie, have you still got it? Did you finish it?
I haven't finished it yet. I'm a dip in and do Bowser of things.
Pass it on to Danielle.
I shall.
We'll do the whole.
So you can't moan at me if Rosie's still reading it.
I'm not just reading the one book.
Well, because Bob Iger goes into like, he does like a whole chapter on like acquisitions, and Marvel is one of them, and he talks about like all the deals that they went into, because apparently the old CEO of Marvel was like really hard to get in touch with. So the fact that they managed to get it at all is crazy.
Yeah,
it was fate, magic. Some might say.
Yes. So the franchise includes the classic superheroes, I would say. Spider-Man. You've got Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and then, but interestingly enough, the original Spider-Mans, so that's the Tobey Maguire, and then even the Andrew Garfield version, the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, aren't classed as part of the universe. It's only the Tom Holland versions, the newer ones, because they weren't included. The same with the Fantastic Four franchise. If you've ever heard of them or seen them, ironic. The funny thing is that Chris Evans, who plays Captain America, actually stars in those franchises as well. So they're not classed in it at all. Like, even I think my brother was telling me they did a reboot of it. I've never watched them.
Oh wow.
They did a reboot and that didn't hit off. So unless they're doing a new one now, who knows? But then none of them are included in the cinematic universe. But the only one that is the Incredible Hulk.
Which, compared to the others, is a bit of a disappointment.
I didn't watch that one.
It's not.
I asked and you were like, "It's not worth it."
It's not.
I've never seen it myself, but I've never wanted to see it. And they changed actor as well, so
that's the thing.
I don't know who it was, but now it's Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo is Hulk. He is Hulk.
Yeah.
So
Mark Ruffalo had been Incredible Hulk, and I'd have watched it.
Yes,
but I was like, I'm too attached now to Mark Ruffalo, so to watch, because I'd already seen the other films, like obviously the Hulk is in with Mark Ruffalo. I was like, it'd be weird to go back to one that he isn't in.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right because he is Hulk. Like, I can't imagine anyone else but him. So. Yes, that one's a bit strange. So yes, as Danielle was saying, there are phases in the MCU. So there's 4 phases. So the first 3 have happened. So I'll just briefly go over when these phases took place and which films are included in these phases. So the first phase was between 2008 and 2012. And in that phase, you've got Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, and then the Avengers, the first Avengers film. So that's when it all kind of kicked off and materialized. And then you've got phase 2, which was in 2013 to 2015. You've got Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, and then you've got Ant-Man. And then phase 3, I feel like this is where it truly kicks off. Captain America, Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther.
Saw Thor Ragnarok in the cinema. That was the other one I saw. I saw Thor Ragnarok without seeing anything else to do with Thor in it.
That film.
That was interesting.
Such a good film. That's why this phase is amazing. And then you've got Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and then finally Spider-Man Far From Home. So that marks the end of phase 3. And then phase 4 was meant to begin with Black Widow this year, back in March, I think it was, maybe. Sadly, the pandemic thwarted another cinematic release, and that has now been postponed to next year, I believe.
Next year, yeah. I think they pushed it back, I think, to like July, and then they pushed it back to November, and now they've pushed it back again.
Because I was going to say, I think there was talk as well of them possibly putting it on Disney Plus, but obviously they've decided not to. I
think the thing is, because they've released a few, haven't they, on Disney Plus? I think they just, something like Black Widow, which must have cost them so much money. I don't think they can afford to not release that in the cinema. I was just reading then as well. I know we're going to talk about the TV series as well, but there's one to do with like Scarlet Witch, which I've just read has been postponed to 2021.
Yeah, I know, so sad, because the Falcon and the Winter Soldier has been, which is to do with two characters out of Captain America, Captain America the Winter Soldier and Captain America Civil War, and then they're in slightly in the Endgame.
I feel like after Civil War everyone's in everything.
Everyone's in everything really, aren't they? But that's been delayed, and I was so looking forward to that one. I think WandaVision's soon.
It's been delayed.
Is that what you said? Delayed.
So I've just been reading an article.
It's almost ready, wasn't
it?
Yeah.
They've delayed it to episodes to January now.
No.
They were promoting it, weren't they, with the trailer?
Yeah. So have we had any Marvel content this year at all?
No,
I don't think we have.
Not yet. So we were obviously meant to have Black Widow, and then the next thing's in phase 4. But these are the things where it gets a bit kind of like, are these confirmed? Because we don't know what's happening necessarily.
In the D23 Expo, they confirmed 6, didn't they? Okay. So it was like the Black Widow, the Eternals, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Oh God, this is testing my knowledge now because I don't know them all. Black Panther 2 was confirmed, but I'm not sure what's going to happen with
uncertainty,
that now.
I think.
After Chadwick Boseman.
We can't not mention Chadwick
Boseman. So excited for Black Panther 2 because he was just iconic, and I can't believe that we're not going to see him in any of the Marvel films.
T'Challa.
It was such a shock. That, honestly, it shocked me to the core. I was like,
for anyone who doesn't follow Marvel, Chadwick Boseman played Black Panther, and the Black Panther film, we'll talk about it in a bit, it's one of my absolute favourites in the MCU, made history because it was like basically an all-black cast, basically, wasn't it? It was like, it was the only Marvel film that was nominated. Was it Best Picture at the Oscars?
Yeah.
So it was like, it was historic, basically.
It was amazing. A good movie.
Yeah.
So it was really like revolutionary. It was kind of like, it was really progressive. And then unfortunately Chadwick Boseman died earlier this year at 42. So it's from cancer. So it's really sad. It's kind of like shook the Marvel community at the time because we were all ready for like his next film. And it turned out that he actually had cancer whilst he was like filming the other Marvel films as well.
At the beginning.
And just makes him so much stronger as a person. Like when I watch it now, I think how strong he was, like how
he embodies T'Challa in real life.
Does.
He is Black Panther.
But I still think I've got some doubts over it now. Like what are they gonna do? Like I think that's gonna be the big question, is what are they gonna do with Black Panther 2?
We should definitely do another episode specifically on Black Panther.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
There's a lot to discuss.
If you want me back, I would be happy to.
We'll have you back.
Yeah,
we'll pencil you in. So, Rosie, do you want to just confirm what Phase 4 looks like then, and what
we've got Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings,
that's
which is
the other
quite
one
rogue.
I was going to say. That's the one I don't ever remember.
It's very rogue.
Doctor Strange?
No. Doctor Strange 2 as well is in this phase.
Yeah, that's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Then we've got Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, and then you've got
so excited.
Captain Marvel. Yeah, Captain Marvel 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and Ant-Man 3. So, mostly sequels.
Phase. But it's a big phase, really, if you think about it.
Yeah,
like
it is. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Definitely,
it's going to be interesting as well because I think for a lot of the Marvel community, Marvel ended with Endgame.
Yeah, some people do say
it's
that.
Going to be interesting to see
Far From Home
people's.
Ended it, for me.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how people respond to the next ones,
and
how they carry on the story because they built such a climax with Endgame. I'm excited to see where they take it and where the characters go.
Me too.
We shall see.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, on that then. So, Danielle, what's your favourite phase, would you say, out of the, obviously the 3, because we haven't seen 4 yet.
Yeah. Definitely phase 3. honestly, the movies in Phase 3 are just out of this world. Like, the special effects, the comedy in them, the script, the characters, honestly, everything is just such a high quality. And it's ironic, really, because my favourite movie's in Phase 2, but Phase 3 is my favourite phase.
Yeah.
100%. What about you, Rosie?
Same, because all of my favourite Marvel films, most of them are in that phase, so I can't exactly be like, oh, it's Phase 1, when literally like Thor Ragnarok is my favourite. It's a bit of a spoiler for later on, apologies, and Black Panther, and obviously Infinity War and Endgame. They're all just such like huge films, and also the introduction of Spider-Man as well. That's also a huge thing because I love Spider-Man.
I love Spider-Man.
So I can't, it can only be 3 for me. What about you, Katie?
I'm the same. I think 3 is I just think with... No, I actually really enjoyed the Iron Mans, actually. I enjoyed the first phase because it's like a nice intro. Whereas I love how clever Phase 3 is, how they all overlap, how everything leads into each other. The characters are so much stronger. The visuals are obviously a lot stronger. The colours in the films are phenomenal. I'll be honest, Phase 2 I think is the weakest phase. Sorry, Dan.
I
know
agree with
you've
that,
got
actually.
Winter Soldier in there.
I completely agree.
But I think, I actually enjoyed all the Iron Man films, but I think when you look at it, it's the one that's like got the least progression.
I think there are a couple of really good films in Phase 2. I understand where you're coming from, it is quite it, but I would say Phase 1's the weaker phase. Like, I feel like some of their movies are slow to get going, and you just sit there and you're like, oh, you're not sure. Like, Phase 3 is definitely the best one, and I think it's a bit of it. I think Phase 1 and 2 is, I'd say, like very equal in their stances, because you have some good films in them, but some not so good films in them. Right, that's what I'd say. Is I think they're very on equal footing, Phase 1 and 2.
I think with like Phase 1, I think I'd rewatch the Phase 1 films. I think that's what it is. But I think once I got to like... Oh, actually, the only thing I would say is actually because Age of Ultron is in Phase 2, and I love Age of Ultron. That's such a good one.
That's one I was thinking.
But when I look at like Phase 2, I probably wouldn't rewatch Iron Man 3.
No.
As much as I love Thor the Dark World,
Thor films are quite weak apart from Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Like compared to the other Avenger films, as much as I hate to admit it, they are weaker.
Yeah. But I also enjoyed Ant-Man, but I wouldn't watch Ant-Man again.
Oh, I would. I love Ant-Man.
And what was the other one that was in here? Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's good. See, so there's like, I think of Phase 2, there's quite a few strong movies. You've got Age of Ultron, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, and Captain America.
Guardians of the Galaxy I'm not as hooked on as you. I enjoy... That was when I watched that the very first time. I switched off. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, me
I got
too.
really bored.
Neither did I. Neither did I. I wasn't a massive lover. I might shock you, but I actually only went back to watch the Guardians of the Galaxy after I'd seen Endgame.
Yeah,
sounds silly.
They come in a bit more important there, don't they?
Like, I knew who they were, and I knew what they did, and I knew kind of knew what happened, but I didn't know.
I think that's where they shine, actually, when they're together with the other Marvel characters. I think it brings them out a bit more. They're very different, and that's what's so great about them. They're very different to everyone else, and they all come from different places. So I think amongst others, they don't get hidden, they actually shine more.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And I think, when I look back at Phase 2, I just, like I said, they're not the ones that I would rewatch personally. I do like Winter Soldier, and I like Age of Ultron. But like you say, I was gutted because Thor, spoiler for later in the episode, Thor is my favourite Avenger, my favourite Marvel character. So I was really excited to watch the Thor films. And after watching like Iron Man, and what else was that after that one? Iron Man, Iron Man 2 was in there as well. I was like, oh great. And then Thor was a bit of a letdown.
Sadly.
It's not greatly written, is it?
It's weaker.
Apart from Thor Ragnarok, which is fantastic. So I think number 3 is definitely the strongest.
Yeah, number 3 is definitely
100%.
Especially, let's not forget Captain Marvel. I think I need to shout out Captain Marvel, because Captain Marvel gets so much hate, and I absolutely love that film.
I don't like that they get so much hate. It was such a great film, and Brie Larson is fantastic.
Yeah,
she's so good.
Marvel.
She's so good at being, and I love the fact you get to see the backstory of Fury.
Yes, that's great.
And Moose the cat.
Moose, the Moose.
Moose, where did they go? Moose the cat.
And it's the first female lead Marvel film.
Yeah.
Like, thank
That's
you.
why people hate it, let's be honest.
It is.
Yeah,
like, sorry.
It's like,
I'm going to say it.
It's like, sorry, you guys have had your representation for years. Like, can we, women, please have someone, and little girls have someone to, you know, look up to in the same way you had Captain America.
When you listen to the criticism and they're like, oh, like, she never smiles. Actually, she does quite a lot in the film.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is the promo pictures. And if you go through the promo pictures for every other male superhero, I dare you to find me a promo picture where they're smiling.
But I'd even look back at the group ones for the Avengers. None of them are smiling. And
they're smouldering. They're doing a little smoulder.
It's an intense film. Like, it's not a film. You need to stand and smile.
You're not going to be there like, cheese. Like, we're in battle.
The world's blowing up. Everybody smile.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those films that I just don't understand why it gets so much hate.
No.
We are here for Captain Marvel.
We
are.
So
if Brie Larson, if you are listening, we like your film.
We do.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
So that then brings us on to our next Disney fun fact. And Rosie, this fun's over to you.
Yay! I love fun facts. Okay, so fun fact number 3. So Thor is the richest Marvel superhero, and not only is Thor a royalty, but he is also a god. Of course he is. His family owns several vaults filled with treasures and statues collected from several worlds. Moreover, he holds a prestigious status that far surpasses that of T'Challa's. Ooh. His guardians are also considered to be highly advanced aliens and to be wealthy enough to consider gold as something cheap. Imagine that lifestyle.
I know.
Imagine that being your introduction in life. Like, this is who I am.
Yeah, that would be the best lifestyle. Not having to worry about what you want to buy. Like, being able to do what you want.
I do love Asgard, to be fair. So Asgard is where Thor is based. It's where Thor's from. It's I love like the Golden Palace in Asgard.
So beautiful.
It's
such
honestly
a lovely place.
It
was.
The cinematic.
Yes.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Well, I didn't say anything when or where. I just said you. You'll have to watch all the films to find out. There you go.
Yeah.
It's just so cinematically, visionary, beautiful. Like, honestly,
it's definitely
that scene
visionary.
In the third. Is it the third one? The third or the second one? It's one of them. Or maybe it's the first. I don't. So they all blur for me. When there's like a big bridge that basically like joins Asgard and like Thor's world to the rest of the world. And there's in one of the films, I can't remember which ones. It's not really a spoiler. That bridge is basically like destroyed at some point, but it's like a rainbow thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when they split it in half, and oh my god, like the cinematography in that is insane. Like to chop a magical imaginary bridge in half, it is crazy. So yes, definitely recommend. Even if you just enjoy cinema, and kind of watching nice films, you'll enjoy them.
It's very beautiful. So yes, well that brings us on to our third segment. So this is going to be an interesting one. So we're going to talk about our favourite Marvel films. So Danielle, I think you've already said this. I think we all have. But what is your favourite Marvel film?
Okay, 100% my favourite Marvel film is Captain America and the Winter Soldier. And I'll tell you why. It's because it's got, honestly, the cast is great in it. So it's got Chris Evans, Sebastian Stan, who, if you've anybody has watched Gossip Girl, he's in that. He's in
That's why I knew him from.
Briefly.
Yeah, me too.
Right. Then you've got Anthony Mackie, who I'm not sure whether it was his first role. I don't know, but it was his first role within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he was great. You've got Scarlett Johansson. You've got Samuel L. Jackson. You've got, I think her name's Emily Van Camp, who plays Sharon Carter. You've got Colby Smulders, who plays Agent Hill. Like, honestly, the cast. And then you've got the person, I can't remember his name, who plays Alexander Pierce.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, you've got such a good cast. And then you've got, like, I'm not going to spoil anything, because I don't, you know, I am very conscious of spoilers. And if people haven't watched it, then, you know, I don't want to spoil it. But it's such a good film because it kind of like, for me, I feel like it kind of kicks off the next start to the phases. Like, it's kind of like the catalyst for everything else that happens.
It changes the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does definitely, because I think originally it was like kind of like you got the introductions to them. Iron Man 3, I think, was a bit of a write-off. Like, I don't know where they were going with Iron Man 3, which was the movie just beforehand.
I loved Iron Man 3.
I just don't know where they were going with it, really.
No, but it's just quite a nice film to enjoy, wasn't it?
Yeah. that voices. But then you had Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and that kind of was like the catalyst that started everything else.
Yeah,
for me, I feel like, and that's why I really love it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Actually, I feel like that one, like you said, it does set a tone. Like, I think something changes in the Marvel universe, and it's like, oh,
and you can kind of like see that something's coming, sort of thing. And whilst Avengers, obviously, because that was the end of the first phase, like kind of hinted at it. It didn't massively, like, you didn't know what was really going to happen from there. But it was kind of like Captain America's the Winter Soldier was kind of like, that was it. Like, you were like, oh my god, something's gonna.
I think that film is the one where they become less one-dimensional, and because they're not one-dimensional characters at all. But I feel like someone like Captain America, who is known to be like, he always does the right thing, he's always good. That's the film, I think, where we start the whole franchise starts to question what is good and what is bad, and that is so much more interesting than just watching good versus evil. You start to have that dialogue is then introduced of actually like the greater good and like what's actually helping people and how far do we help people to be selfish. And I think it introduces a more complicated and mature storyline, I think.
And it kind of takes you away from that the idea of comic books and like
stereotype.
The stereotype, and it's kind of like more depth. And I think
it definitely appeals to adults a lot more, I think, once you get from that point as well, because it is more complex and intricate. So it still appeals to kids because you've still got your superheroes in there, but adults can go in and enjoy a complicated film. I think that's what's changed in those. I mean, they're all long and a bit like deep anyway before that, but I think after that it becomes more morally complex, which just makes for interesting viewing. I think.
So, Katie, what is your favourite Marvel film?
See, this is a really hard one for me because I instantly lean to Black Panther just because I love that film. I love the cinematography, I love the acting, I love the story, I love what it stands for, I love how historic it is, I love the music. Oh my god, when I went to this film in the cinema, the music just blew me away. The costumes are insane. Like every single part of this film works. There's nothing about it that you're a bit like,
no, and it's not slow ever. No. It's really well paced.
So I think it's my favourite Marvel film. Just because I feel like I could watch it on repeat as well. I feel like I said before, because it stands on its own as well. You can watch it as a one-off, and I quite enjoy that. But on the other hand, I do love like Thor Ragnarok. I love that film. I remember going to see that with my friend Alex, who I mentioned before, and he was like, the last Thor films weren't like this. They weren't funny. I was really confused. I was like, oh. And then obviously we all love the final two, Infinity War and Endgame. I actually think I prefer Infinity War to Endgame. Me too. When I rewatched them. Initially I preferred Endgame, and I think that final scene in Endgame, the battle, I won't spoil things, but the final battle scene is probably the best Marvel scene ever.
Probably the best scene in a film ever, I would say.
Any film,
I would argue.
Definitely.
But I think the level of content and the twists and turns in Infinity War and how fast it moves, I think I prefer that. So I think Infinity War is probably like my second favourite, just because of how, again, I won't spoil it, but I love the fact that I'm quite a sicko, but I love the fact that it ends
like
it doesn't end how you expect.
It's not.
Got a very big cliffhanger.
It doesn't follow the traditional trajectory of everybody gets a happy ending. And I love that. I love it. Was such a brave move, I think, from the directors, from the writing.
I'll never forget like being in the cinema when that fine, and then it was just silence, and you like the whole cinema was like shocked.
We were all waiting for more. And then we were like, there isn't any more.
And then we stayed, because if you've ever watched a Marvel film, you'll realise is that they have clips at the end that kind of lead you on to the next couple of movies. And I remember sitting there waiting for that clip. I think it was with you, wasn't I, Katie? I think we went to see it together. And and I was like, right, so where's the clip? I kept going to Katie, can't be it, that can't be it, there's got to be something else here, there's got to be. There wasn't.
No,
I love it. That was good.
That's what I mean. I think everyone, I love what Marvel have been so clever at challenging the norm, at challenging the audience, and challenging like the typical cinema experience. And I remember everyone literally, the cinema was dead. It was full because we went to the midnight release, didn't we, Dan? And we literally turned around, like the entire cinema had their mouths like gaped open. It's like, what has just happened? And then we had to wait a year for the next film. So everyone was like, for goodness sake.
And you hadn't watched much by that point, and you were going,
there were a few things I was confused on, but I got it overall. Because that's the film when things really come together from the past films. So they like there's like a collection of like different artifacts throughout that film that have been placed throughout the movie. So that was the one bit I was like, sorry, where did this come from?
That's confusing anyway, to be fair.
It is
but
confusing.
Maybe I also prefer Infinity War because so much of it takes place in Wakanda.
Yeah,
that's probably
that is one of the best parts of that, definitely.
And Thor in that film is all I'm going to say. Because Thor in Endgame is a bit of a different story.
It is quite drastically different.
But it's not the Chris Hemsworth I've come to know. So, I think definitely Black Panther is my fave, and then Infinity War is a very close second, I would say. With then probably the Thor Ragnarok afterwards, because it's so funny. It's so funny. How about you, Rosie? What's your favourite?
Well, we're clearly very in sync because I feel like mine are basically the same as yours, but in different order. Thor Ragnarok is my favourite film, like one of my favourite films ever, let alone my favourite Marvel film. And it's not
strong female character as well, which is why I love that one as well.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, she's evil, but she's really cool.
Yeah.
But then you've also got Tessa Thompson as well.
Yeah, Tessa Thompson is fierce. Like,
fun fact: if you listen to episode number 3, she's also the voice of Lady in the live action Lady and the Tramp.
She is.
There you go.
Yes. So like you said, there's strong female characters in Thor Ragnarok. But also what I love about it is that it's like quite a family like film in terms of we're finding more out about Thor and Loki's family. We're finding out more about their dad's past, like Odin's like past. And I won't give any spoilers, but there's a bit more to their family than they initially believed.
Yes, and then they bargained for.
And a lot happened in the past that they were not made aware of. It was quite hidden. So I kind of love that we get a bit more background because like we were saying,
I agree.
The first 2 Thor films, they are quite weak. They're a bit empty. There's not enough context for me, and
they're very cliche, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're very cliche, and they are like they're like all right to watch once. And this is me saying as a massive Thor fan, you watch it once, but again, like it feels like it's not finished. You feel like you're missing something. Like a few pages are missing from the script.
Yeah, it just hits differently. Like this film, I remember like watching the first like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and the music as well. Like the rock music you've got in that
film
is
so
absolutely perfectly placed.
Marvel definitely upped their music game in phase 3.
100%.
Like I get chills when I watch the scenes with that incredible music placement. I'm like, they nailed it.
I think that's why Thor Ragnarok is my second favourite. Like I know I didn't mention that before, but I think it's definitely my second favourite. Like I could watch that film again and again and again and get bored of it. Like
I think that's another one I think that stands on its own.
Definitely,
I think as well.
Definitely.
I know you've got the Tesseract stuff in.
Yeah.
So like this magical mythical thing that just seems to jump into every film.
Yeah.
For context, it's a cube that glows blue. And it's basically like a portal to other worlds. Like you can use it's called the which one is it? Having a moment. The Space Stone.
The Space Stone.
And it like opens portals into different space, into different areas of space.
Yeah.
Basically. Protect contact.
But that's the only thing I would say in that film that is like from the other like obviously Hulk's in that film.
I was gonna say Hulk you might need a bit more background on as to why he's
I watched it without knowing that because I hadn't seen Age of Ultron before. Age of Ultron?
Yes.
I don't even know. And I got it. So I think, again, it's one of those films that stands on its own. So I think that they always, whilst the crossovers are great and they're fantastic, I don't know, there's like an extra edge to one that stands on its own. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But there's an extra level to it because it feels like it's more rounded.
I agree with you, Katie. I don't think you need to, if like you're looking for a movie to dip your toe into and you like a good, like a good comical film that's got a lot going on, but it's easy to follow. Thor Ragnarok, because it doesn't really start with a follow-on from anything.
No,
and he kind of explains why he's where he is, and then it kind of goes on from there. You don't need to know who the characters are because they introduce you to them again. Really, like there's not.
Well, there you go, everybody. Danielle's recommendation for your first Marvel film: go watch Thor Ragnarok. There you go.
But
I'm starting you in the wrong place, but. That's the best.
No, I think that'll grip people and make them watch more, hopefully.
But because Chris Hemsworth is just fantastic.
And sorry, can we just have a moment, please? I'm about to discuss this a bit later on.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
It's happening.
let's move on.
So Loki.
No, I'm joking.
So what
I also love
love
Loki, not as much as Rosie does.
Thor
but,
Ragnarok, okay, is that we get such a great brotherly bond finally between Thor and Loki. It's like genuine,
which isn't shown in cinema a lot. You don't tend to get strong brother representation on screen.
Yeah,
you tend to get like, oh, we're brothers stick together kind of thing. But when you get deep sibling relationship, it's normally sisters that you see.
Exactly. And obviously they've had their issues with each other in the past. I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but there's some deep stuff between those two. And we have a bit of a redemption arc from Loki, and I am such a sucker for redemption arcs. I love it when people redeem themselves. I mean, I loved him already, but in that film, I was
going to say, you loved him when he was a proper villain as well.
I did. I love him as a villain, but I also love the fact that he redeems himself in that film, and it just brings more depth to his character, the redemption arc. So, yes. So as you can probably tell, he's my favorite character. But yeah, so that's my favorite. And then, like you were saying, I think Infinity War is probably my next favorite because it just brings everyone together for the first time. We've never had a film that sees so many characters all together, but also work properly, because there were so many critics that were saying this isn't going to work, it's not going to work because there's too much going on at once, you're not going to be able to follow the story, you won't be able to get to know the characters enough. But that is so different to what it is. Like, you get to know them in more ways than you thought you would ever would in that film.
Fun fact about the film, I'm not sure if people know this, but there was only one person who knew the entire script from Infinity War to Endgame, and that was Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Doctor Strange. They didn't trust anybody else to know it.
To be fair, he'd be my choice as well.
Yeah, he'd be my choice.
I agree.
Like, that's how special this movie was, and how highly anticipated this movie was, is that they only trusted one person with the entire script. So
I mean, they had to as well.
You should go and watch them.
What with Mark Ruffalo and Tom Holland spilling the beans everywhere.
Yeah, the resident bean spillers.
Leaking things literally from a cinema. Mark Ruffalo, like, oh, wow.
And it's just so funny that they don't even realise what they're doing.
I know.
And
there's a scene, I don't feel like this is technically a spoiler, because I'm not saying who, but there's a scene in one of the films, there's a funeral in one of the scenes, in one of the films, that Tom Holland was told was a wedding.
Yeah.
So that he didn't spill who died in the film. And I just, he was I turned up and was like, why is everybody in black and so sad?
What I was going to say is that, how did he not think, because he had to be so sad, he had to look so sad.
I guess they told him eventually.
Yeah,
but I guess they probably told him to turn up until they'd filmed it, or they probably filmed it in tiny little bits.
Yeah,
they must have, because
together.
They must have though, because for me, and it sounds silly, but I feel like anybody would be the same, is that if you're acting in a funeral scene, you've got to be, how did he not realise?
That scene is complex, to be fair. That scene is complex with the camera travel. Yeah. So it could have just been Tom looks sad and he was like, okay.
Yeah.
He just did what he's been told to do.
Yeah.
So
you stop smiling now, you need to look sad.
Yeah. Scene to watch out for, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Just watch that film. Just watch all of the films. I think we're trying to give you that.
Yeah. All 23 is
all 23.
If you have a week off or a couple of weeks off, just do it.
It's a good way to do it.
Honestly.
Especially in lockdown.
It's worth it.
Treat yourself. Yeah. So yeah, they're my favourites, closely followed by Black Panther as well, I'd probably say. Like you said.
I'm the only one that's got a different one. I agree with you both on on yours. I agree.
Yeah.
Infinity War, Ragnarok, Black Panther, Endgame, they're amazing. But I think I've got a special place in my heart for Captain America.
Well, it's your love for Chris Evans, isn't it?
I think it is my love.
So
that's the thing.
That's the truth of it all.
Whereas Rosie and I, as you'll hear in a second, our favourites do fall in the Thor world.
They do.
So that's probably why.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they do.
Yes.
We know. We've had many a chat.
Wow.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
And then on that note, then I guess we're moving on to the section that seems to be anticipated and probably going to be a massive debate. I'm dreading it, to be honest. So Danielle, would you like to do our final fun fact?
Oh yes, thank you. Okay, so Disney fun fact number 4 is that Robert Downey Jr. almost wasn't Iron Man. So if it wasn't for Jon Favreau, who was the director, but he also plays Happy Hogan within the movie franchise, insisting that he should play the role of Iron Man, Downey Jr. would not have been so lucky. The Marvel producers, initially saw that, I'm not sure if anybody knows this, but Robert Downey Jr. was had an issue with alcoholism for a while, and they saw his habits as a red flag and believed he wouldn't be suitable for the role. Thank God Jon Favreau,
I know,
because I could not see Iron Man being anybody else.
No, not at all. He's just perfect as Iron Man.
Yeah.
There's nobody, because I feel like even when you watch in interviews, he's that classic idea, a bit like Tom Holland a little bit, I suppose, and who else am I thinking of? When people just play themselves.
Yeah. He is.
Obviously, he's not exactly the same as Tony Stark, Iron Man, but I think he has that same level of charm and sarcasm and stuff. Yeah. So it works so naturally. Watching him on screen, he's just so natural as an actor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's amazing. He's so good.
He is.
I completely agree.
It's me. Sorry, I was just thinking about Robert Downey Jr.
About Robert Downey Jr.
She just sighed over.
Zoned out.
I was just thinking about Robert Downey Jr. He's just a babe. So anyway, yes. So the part that we've all been waiting for. Time to discuss our favourite Marvel characters. I initially named this segment "Favourite Avengers" and then realised that wasn't fair to one of us. So I changed it to favourite Marvel characters. So. We all know each other's because we have had in-depth conversations. We've included it in our quizzes.
So many.
But we feel like it's only fair that we share them with you.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with my least favourite. Rosie, not you as a person, but your choice.
Me. Just got a bit aggressive.
I joke. No, I do love Rosie's choice.
No, you don't.
No, I do. I do love Rosie's choice. I do.
Many a conversation.
Listen.
Where you've sent memes and been like,
listen,
greasy hair.
He does have greasy hair.
That's the look. Okay. So
Rosie, tell us about. I wonder who your favourite character is. Tell us more.
Wow. For fear of getting roasted, I mean that's already begun. Let's be honest. My favourite Marvel character is Loki. The reasons being is not just because Tom Hiddleston as Loki is just absolutely sensational. It's something to behold. Despite the greasy hair that you
I can't see past the greasy hair.
I am a massive fan of it.
So you know what? I'll be honest, Rosie, I agree with you.
Thank you.
He has a massive forehead.
I'll agree with you.
No,
I'm sorry.
That's just life, isn't it? We all have features we don't like.
That they don't like.
Exactly. And it doesn't...
It's funny, because Tom Hiddleston doesn't have a massive forehead. But
I think it's just the way they styled his hair in the first movie, isn't it, really? And then it just kind of stuck.
Yeah, but looks aside, because, we're not going to just judge it on looks.
No.
He is an exceptional villain. I think we can all agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he's the God of Mischief, the Lord of Mischief. He's so mischievous. And I love that. I'm a massive fan of villains that they don't take themselves too seriously, and he definitely doesn't do that. And I love all the havoc he wreaks upon Thor's life. As much as I love Thor, I love it. It's so entertaining, and all his quick remarks, his sarcasm, his sass. I am so here for it because I laugh every single time he speaks. To be honest, he is just fantastic. And the thing is, I think he's my favourite Marvel villain. Of course, he is my favourite character. And I think it is just because, like I said, he doesn't take himself seriously and he is absolutely hilarious. And I think, to be fair, it does help that he's paired with Thor, who is arrogant and has a massive ego.
Now listen, let's not bash Thor.
I couldn't possibly bash Thor because he's my favourite Avenger. So though he's not my favourite character, he's my favourite Avenger, so I can support you on that front. But yeah, no, Loki's definitely my favourite character. I feel like there's a lot of Loki stands out there as well, by the way, just to put it out there.
To be fair, I'm a bit harsh. I also the reason this conversation has come about is because our favourite character conversation came from we all have lists, right? We all have lists of
It's all coming out now. Here we go.
It is coming out. We're sharing with our listeners.
We had to try and narrow the list down to the top 5, and that was a moment.
That was hard. And what we realised is that I have a type where they're all married. It's really sad. And on the top of my top of my list was Thor. I'll get to it in a second. I just love Chris Hemsworth. the top of Rosie's list was Loki, and I just can't see past the greasy hair. As a character, absolutely. As anything else, the greasy hair is a no for me. But he is a phenomenal character, to be fair, and I think he's again a bit like I said about Robert Downey Jr. He's so natural to watch.
Yeah.
Tom Hiddleston always looks so comfortable on screen, whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but Loki, you think Loki's gone and then Loki's not gone.
Yeah,
I think normally
back.
I love his boomerang effect.
Yeah, as a viewer, that can sometimes be a bit like, oh, how cliche and boring and like, oh, typical. But the way that he plays it means it doesn't come across that way. So yeah, I would give it to
And you want him to come back, of course.
Did you guys know that Matt Damon cameoed as him in the third film?
Yes.
So there's a scene. Oh, you have to go back and watch it, but I'll explain it for people who have not seen it. So in the third Thor film, Ragnarok, there's like they kind of stage like a play of the story of Thor and Loki, and the person who plays Thor is actually Chris Hemsworth's other brother, not Liam, the other one that I don't know the name of. Oh. I'm sorry.
No one knows the name of the other one. The other Hemsworth, just what his name is, unfortunately.
And then Matt Damon is Loki.
Yes, I love that. I think that was amazing.
Interesting.
I know that was completely unrelated, but
no, it's linked. It is linked. So yeah, he's my favourite. And also I think Tom Hiddleston, he's very civilized, you know, like as a as a guy,
he really is.
You know, he's there with his like
and as
scarf.
A villain.
Yeah.
Like he's such a civilized villain. Like he's like wrecking the world. He's like, sorry, do you mind?
Yeah, he's quite a polite villain. And I can appreciate that. Maybe it's the British thing as well, potentially. But yes. So I could talk about Loki all day, but it's probably enough. Probably all you guys can take. So
yeah.
So Danielle, who is your favourite character?
Well, I
wonder.
I feel like we'd have guessed this by now, the amount of times I've brought him up, but it is, of course, Captain America.
Of course.
I absolutely adore Captain America. And okay, so first things that attracted me were his looks, his biceps in particular.
Oh wow.
But he's got such a depth of a character. Like you see him at the beginning, he's like this like goody soldier, but then he kind of like starts doubting the moral compass, and then he goes on to doubt it more, and then you see his like friendship with Bucky and how that like plays a massive effect on what he does and what he thinks is right and wrong. And honestly, I think he just kind of grew as a character. Yeah, and definitely. I think a lot of people say he's like one-dimensional, but I don't think he is.
No.
I think he's got a lot going for him. And then right at the end, I'm not going to spoil what happens to him in Endgame for anybody that hasn't watched it, but that kind of broke my heart. I'm not going to lie.
I think he has the perfect ending. I think
he does. For his character, he has the perfect ending.
Definitely.
For me, it wasn't the perfect ending because I wanted more. But for his character, he has the perfect ending.
Yeah, and do you know, I think like when he goes rogue, which like it's so cool because again, it's so unexpected, and you follow this arc with him where he's kind of like
goody two shoes, like
that's like the national treasure of America.
Yeah, he is.
And you know, everyone, no one can say anything against him, and like, you know, he's what he says goes. Like and there's a switch. There's a switch that goes, and I think again, like you said, in terms of like character development, that's so interesting to watch because we haven't seen that Captain America before.
No, and I think that switch came in the Winter Soldier. It was you saw him battle between the idea of what's the good thing to do, and then he had Bucky that came back into his life, and it was kind of like, and then you had the whole, I'm not going to spoil the film because I don't want to spoil the film, but you had the whole issues, the main plot line of the film, and it was like kind of like what was right and that was like kind of, I think that was the catalyst for him, is when he realized that the world wasn't what he thought it was.
No,
it kind of went on from there, and then you had him in Age of Ultron. He was kind of like he was still developing, but Civil War was where he kind of the arc really took off. And it was like,
I think that's really relatable as well when you're saying about the idea of like, you know, he it's like as an adult when you've been told even things like, you know, don't tell lies, right? We all tell lies now to people to protect their feelings, to kind of like, you know, sometimes the truth isn't always the best thing in certain situations.
It's not the most helpful.
And it is and I think it's those things where he starts to learn that, you know, actually like following the law isn't necessarily the right thing to do. Follow it, you know, doing what you've been taught to do sometimes you have to make up your own mind. And I think because he, you know, if you watch the first film, he goes through quite an intense process where everybody else kind of puts expectations onto him. And I feel like from Winter Soldier, he starts to create his own expectations and his own self, which I think is when he really comes into it, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just to bring us back to the first Avenger, I'm not going to spoil it. I feel like I can't talk about some things that I want to speak about because I don't want to spoil it. But there's a moment in Endgame where like the baton is passed on, shall we just say? Say what you guys know what I mean. And they actually link it back to the first Avenger, because in the first Avenger, Erickson, the scientist that basically says that he's not looking for a good soldier, he's looking for a good man, and that's when the baton is passed, that's what's said. And I never really linked it until I watched it back, because I always had issues with that scene, but now I have no issues with that scene.
But that just shows how Marvel is so interlinked and interconnected, and they're always planning ahead. They've always got, like, they know what's coming next so many years before.
They can plan like what they want in there. And I just think that's half the appeal to Marvel.
Exactly.
It's so intricate that it's not this typical like I can't even like farce. I'm gonna say farce, like a comic book movie. That what is this?
It's like, so deep, so much depth. Yes, sometimes too much because you can't follow what's going on.
So Katie, who is your favourite character? Although I think we've touched on this a few times.
Thor is my absolute favourite. I think I just love him. I love his sarcasm. I love his confidence. I love the arrogant side of him because it's just so funny.
It is.
Like when there's like there's a scene. I think it's Ultron where he's like, "I am the strongest Avenger."
Yeah,
like that's just kind of like.
And then they have the competition to try and pick up his hammer, and he almost has a heart attack when Captain America almost picks it up.
Yeah. So I think like his one-liners are fantastic, and he has such an arc. I think people forget this from the first film. Like, he's not very pleasant in the first film.
No, he's very spoiled. I think that's the word.
He's really spoiled and naive, and I think he's very entitled in the first film, where he expects things to happen just because he's Thor. And his character arc is really interesting because it's from very early on in Phase 1 right to the end of Phase 3, like in Endgame. Again, he has like another character dip. So I think the reason I love him is he's just so interesting as a character. He has so many different relationships with different people. I love the fact that like he's a god when he gets his lightning out, and I love it. I love him as a leader. I love the way he treats women as well. Just put that out there. Like, he's very respectful towards women. The way that he kind of treats is it Valkyrie in Ragnarok, his character, and then into Endgame, the way he respects and treats her and values women in his life. Not in number one, but kind of after number one. He's great, and I think I just love his same like with Loki, I guess, like you, Rosie. It's that character arc that he goes on, and he's just so interesting to watch. I just love him, and I think as well because he has so many different relationships with different people. So like he goes on trips with like Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like he kind of then there's like in Endgame when he's kind of matched up with like Iron Man and Captain America, and then like in what's the other one? I'm sure there's a point where he goes off with Hawkeye, and like I think he's a very versatile Avenger where he'll kind of go off and do his own thing with whoever, so you get to see so many sides of him, which I think is cool. But I do have two honourable mentions. Hawkeye is another honourable because he is one of my absolute faves. I think he is so underrated.
Yeah, he's so underrated.
I'm also a sucker for a bow and arrow. I love Brave with a bow and arrow. I love Hawkeye with his bow and arrow. So definitely he's like a very highly commendable second choice, who's like joint with T'Challa and in Black Panther, because he's just and Shuri as well in Black Panther. The two of them are kind of equal.
So good.
I love Shuri.
So Shuri is Black Panther's sister, potentially the next Black Panther, who knows? And she is just she is everything.
She is
that a female like protagonist, like like lead should be.
Yeah.
Like, she's so revolutionary. The fact that she's like, not only is she a woman of color with a lead role in this film, but she's she leads men. She leads like teams of men. She has like, she's into science, so she's like a STEM student as well. Like, so all these things we're teaching women that you can do, you can be. She is, and I think that's really cool. So although Flora is just like my fave in general, they are kind of like, I think actually Sherry's probably second. She's like my second fave. As well. So I think, and that's the great thing about this whole franchise, is that you will find someone that you love, and you'll find people that you connect with, and there'll be different people. All of ours are different, even though we're very similar people. So yes, they are. There's my favourites. And that is the end of the episode. So thank you so much for listening. We hope that if you're a Marvel fan, you've enjoyed listening to our discussions and you've kind of got all the hints and tricks. If you aren't a Marvel fan yet, then we hope we've inspired you to kind of go on and listen to some films. To watch some films. You can listen if you want.
You need to listen too.
Yeah,
you have to listen as well. You can put subtitles on, I suppose, but listen to the films. And thank you so much, Danielle, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to have you on A Sprinkle of Disney. I'm excited that we planned your next one. We're going to pop our Black Panther one in soon. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it.
I have enjoyed it very much. Thank you both so much for having me. I've had an absolute ball of a time.
Oh, this is so wholesome.
Danielle actually hasn't felt very well today either, so an extra thank you to Danielle for coming when she didn't feel particularly well. Hopefully we've made you feel better.
It has, it's like kind of given me a little bit of a pick up, I'm not gonna lie.
Good. What are friends for?
That's what this podcast is all about.
Friends and Chris Evans. I don't know. I'm gonna say it's us, but I think we know it's Chris Evans.
It's just thinking about Chris Evans.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I feel like I should say thank you too. And you've been a trooper to get through this and be ill, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I'd be able to do it as well as you have. So yes, thank you.
As I said, thank you both very much, and I hope everybody listening enjoyed my views, but I'm sorry if I've offended anybody.
It comes as part of the job, literally.
It does.
Honestly, if you listen to our Pinocchio.
yes, I have.
You can't please everyone.
No,
I'm afraid.
you can't.
Life.
It's one of those things.
You have to be real here. So on that note, if you've enjoyed our episode today, then please subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or follow us on Podbean. And if you've been listening for a while, we'd really appreciate you leaving us a review. And thank you to all the wonderful listeners that have done this already. We've had some really kind reviews, and they've been so lovely. And as I've said a million times, they genuinely make our day when we see those reviews. I actually go back and look at them sometimes just for a pick me up.
Well.
And I show my family and friends.
I think it's also something worth noting is that they help other viewers find us, listeners find us as well. So even though we love them and they're big ego boosts, it's really nice. They help other listeners kind of find the Disney magic as well. So if you haven't filled one in, it would be great to go and fill one in.
I will attest to the fact that they do love them, because they send them into the group chat sometimes. So, look at this review, so please do give them a review.
Yes. And if you've got any Marvel loving fans, then make sure to pass us on to them, and of course Disney as well. And then coming up next time, we have our next Disney animated classics review, which I know
on to our third cycle, Rosie. Our third cycle.
I love this. I think we're slowly getting to ones that I like a bit more. So it's not going to be quite as brutal.
Painful.
Pinocchio. Anyway, so our next one is Fantasia, and I think that's going to be a very interesting one. I haven't watched
this in years.
I can barely remember it, to be honest. So so if you feel like watching that ahead of listening to our next episode, feel free. Then you can kind of listen in and see if your thoughts match up to ours. We'll see. And then finally, if you've got any inquiries, we've got our email address. So that's a sprinkleofdisneypodcast@gmail.com. I always have to double check that in my head. I'm like, don't give the wrong one away so people don't get random emails. We've been A Sprinkle of Disney, and have a magical rest of your day.